Although improving your credit score can take time, the sooner you decide to address the issues dragging your score down, the faster your score can go up. In today's video, we're discussing some tips and tricks on how to increase your credit score. Hi guys, it's Shama from Happy Living Now, where we share everything money, lifestyle, and living a happy and rich life. In case you don't know that much about credit or how credit works in the first place, a typical credit score range is from 300 to 850. 300 being the minimum credit score you could have, and a score of 850 being the maximum. Now, the average credit score for the United States population is actually a score of 695, and that actually falls below what is considered a good credit score in the US. Now, a good credit score typically is about a 700 plus. Really, if you're at a 720, most lenders consider that good credit. Knowing what impacts your credit score is technically the first place to get started. And there are 5 key factors that impact your credit score. Now, I recently did a video on understanding your credit score, and in that video I talked about in depth the factors that affect your credit score and the role that each plays into your credit score. So if you have not yet seen that video, go ahead and be sure to check it out right here. The information will be up in the cards above and will also be linked in the description below. But just to recap the 5 factors that affect your credit score, those factors are your credit mix, your credit history, your credit inquiry, credit utilization, and your payment history. Those are the 5 key factors that affect your credit score. Now, of course, before you can start to improve your credit score, you need to know where to start in the first place. It is important to remember, though, that there is no quick fix to fixing your credit. There is no overnight miraculous thing that's gonna quickly improve your credit score. But the first place to start is knowing what to actually work on. Now, there is preliminary work that you must do before you can actually implement the tips that we're going to discuss later on in the video. So before you can implement those tips, these are the following preliminary work that you must do. The first step is to know your credit score. And in order to know your credit score, you need to have a credit report. Now, in case you're not aware, you are actually entitled to one free credit report every year. And so the good place to find that is annualcreditreport.com. That's where you can find your free credit report. It pulls the information from all 3 credit reporting agencies and puts it all in one report. Now, although you are entitled to one free credit report every year, I do recommend that you pull your credit report a couple times a year just so that you remain aware of what's happening on your credit report. And so the way to do that is you could pull your credit report once every 4 months, and you could pull it from each of the credit reporting agencies. The 3 credit reporting agencies are Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So I would recommend pulling your credit report once every 4 months. The first 4 months you can pull it from either one of the credit agencies, and you do that for the remainder of the year. That way you're constantly abreast of if there are any changes in your credit score or your credit report, and you can quickly fix those. Now that you have your credit report and you know what your score is, the next step is to actually fix or correct any incorrect information or inconsistencies. And I'm talking about personal information here. So your name, you want to check to make sure that your name is correctly spelled, your address information is correct, your employment information is correct. I know that I've seen sometimes that the credit reporting agencies, although for the most part they do report the same information across all agencies, sometimes they actually do also report different information. So some of them may not have the same information as far as your employment is concerned, or your address information, or even the correct spelling of your name. So you want to make sure that that information is consistent among all 3 credit reporting agencies. The next step, which is the third step, is to now fix and check for any delinquencies or inaccurate information. And particularly that deals with your credit accounts. You want to make sure to check if there are any missed or late payments reported in your account, and you definitely want to make sure you take steps to fix those. Now, if there are late or missed payments reported in your credit report, you definitely want to make sure you contact the creditor. Most creditors do waive late payments. I mean, especially if it's your first instance, they definitely waive those. You could give a valid reason, such as you initiated a payment but the payment was never processed, or you mailed your payment and for whatever reason they never got it. As long as it's a valid reason, creditors are typically willing to waive that first late payment. Now, if there are other delinquent information or other inaccurate information, you do definitely want to make sure you dispute that information. And so you have two ways of disputing information. You can do it online with the credit reporting agency, or you can do so in writing. Now, I know that we are in this technology age and everybody likes to do things online because it's quicker. It just takes out the hassle of having to deal with going to the post office or whatever it is. But when it comes to disputing items on your credit report, I would actually recommend that you go the old-fashioned route and write your dispute. Do your dispute in writing to the creditor. I say that because typically, creditors have 30 days from the date that you've brought about the dispute to their attention to address that dispute, either by correcting the information or removing it if it's incorrect, or confirming that it is actually correctly reported. If you do write them, though, you want to make sure that you have some way of tracking your correspondence. So I would recommend sending certified mail with a return receipt. That way you know for sure you're able to track it until you're able to get some type of proof that they actually did receive it and it was signed for. Just in case they do not respond within that 30 days time period, you have some type of proof that you can then provide to the credit reporting agencies to let them know you contacted the creditor to dispute a certain item, the creditor did not take any action, and so by law, the credit reporting agency is supposed to remove that information from your credit report if the creditor took no action as far as that disputed item is concerned. All right, so now that you've completed your preliminary work, now the actual work begins. But before we get to discussing the actual work, go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you're liking the content of this video so far. If you've not yet already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and subscribe below if you are interested in seeing more content like this, and definitely hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on my next upload. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the actual work. The first step, of course, is to address your debt. You definitely want to make sure that if you can, you pay off any debt that you can, or you try to minimize or reduce your debt. Now, I know sometimes that may not be feasible for some people. So alternatively, if you cannot eliminate your debt or you're not able to reduce it drastically, the next step is to seek to increase your credit limit. Now, of course, your credit limit can be increased in two ways. Most times it's done by the creditor on their own accord. That often comes if you're someone who's actually been paying consistently and you maintain a good payment history. The creditor will actually increase your credit limit. And of course, the other way is to request it yourself. I know for me, I've requested my credit limit increase a couple times. Oftentimes you let them know the amount you're looking for. I mean, the worst that can happen is that they come back and say, well, no, they're not going to give you a credit limit increase, or they may increase it, but just not to the amount you were requesting. And I've also had situations where my credit limit was increased by the creditor, and I've had that happen quite a few times within the year for the same card. So you definitely want to make sure, though, that you're consistent with payments, because I think that's one of the factors that creditors use. If they're going to increase your credit limit on their own accord, they definitely want to make sure that you're good in making payments. Now, also, the other benefit to increasing your credit limit is that it actually causes your credit utilization ratio to drop as well. So if you have, let's say, one credit card where you have a credit limit of $100 and your outstanding balance is $30, then of course your credit utilization ratio on that card is 30%. Assuming now that your credit limit is increased from $100 to $200 and your available balance is, or your current balance is still the same at $30, now your credit utilization ratio has actually dropped and have gone from 30% utilization to 15% utilization. So that's another perk of actually increasing your credit limit, is that your credit utilization ratio could actually drop even without your outstanding balance being reduced and just remaining the same. So the next step to increasing your credit score is actually avoiding too many inquiries, especially within a short period of time. Remember, the more credit you apply for, the greater an impact it has on your credit score. Every time you seek new credit, that's a hard inquiry on your credit score. And so what that's going to do is negatively impact your credit score, because now it's showing creditors that, hey, this person is probably making too many inquiries within a short period of time. That person seems to be relying on credit a little bit more than other people. So be sure you don't apply for too much credit, especially within a short period of time. Definitely only apply for credit only as needed. You want to make sure that if you're going to apply for credit, you really do need it, but avoid just trying to apply just because you want to see if you can get approved for the next credit card out there. The third tip to increasing your credit score is to keep unused credit accounts open. Do not close unused credit accounts. Okay, that's gonna greatly negatively impact your credit, and I'm speaking from personal experience. Trust me when I tell you. I remember when I first started having credit, I probably was about 18 or 19 years old, very ignorant of how credit worked or anything credit related. So what I did was I signed up for a Sears credit account. Now I know many of you have probably had that experience where you've gone to a department store to purchase something. You're asked if you have that store credit card. You say no. The clerk asks you, well, hey, if you sign up today, you're gonna get so and so discount. Well, lo and behold, I fell for that, and my credit limit was $3,000 on that card at the time. And so, within the time period after that, when the bill actually became due, I initiated payment, but the payment for whatever reason was not processed. And so turns out it wound up being reported as a missed or late payment on my credit report. And of course, that affected my credit negatively. Well, me and my little ignorant self being so upset that my credit score took a hit, I was so angry I closed the account. And I really closed the account technically within a month and a half, maybe 2 months after opening the account. And what did that do? That of course caused my credit score to take an even bigger hit. I was so upset with myself, but of course I didn't know how credit worked at that point. I really didn't know the factors that played into your credit score. So I am speaking from experience, okay? If you're not using that card, or if you're angry as hell for whatever reason, do not close that account. Leave that account open, because closing that account also affects your credit utilization ratio again. It reduces the amount of credit you have available, and then which now causes your credit utilization ratio to go up because you have less credit and your utilization is spread among less cards. The fourth tip to increasing your credit score is, I think, the most common sense tip, which would be to make sure you're paying bills on time. You want to make sure that you're paying bills on time. In case you have not noticed, when you apply for credit, one of the first things that a creditor does is they're going to pull your credit. And what are they looking for? They're looking for information that's going to show them that you are reliable when it comes to making payment. These creditors want to get paid, okay? And so if they know that you're not going to pay them, well, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to get any credit. Creditors use past performance as a good predictor of future performance. So again, I know it's a common sense factor, a common sense thing to do, but you'll be surprised at how much some people just don't bother paying their bills on time or even at all. So definitely pay bills on time. And remember, time is your greatest ally when it comes to fixing your credit. But of course, knowing the areas to focus on is going to help you to determine which areas you should prioritize improving in, which is going to in turn help you improve your credit score. Now, if you implement these tips, you will definitely see a change and an improvement in your credit score. I personally implemented those tips, and when I started implementing those tips, I saw an increase in my credit score of 100 points within like 3 to 6 months time period, and mostly within the shorter time of that time period, like really 2.5 to 3 months. Now, of course, the tips shared in this video are useful to you if you have credit, but if you don't have credit, then technically these tips are pretty much useless unless you are actually interested in building credit. So stay tuned for our next video where we talk about how to build your credit if you have a very thin credit file, or if you actually have no credit at all. If you have any questions or comments, definitely drop them down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you next time, but until then, live happy, live rich, and be blessed. Bye guys.